These people are evil. And you know what? There is a God, and he is not slack concerning his promises. And he promises that the evil will get theirs and the righteous will get theirs. He promises that the evil will get theirs and the righteous will get theirs.
5-8ers, how are we? Welcome back to another episode of the 5-8 Take. Thank you for liking, sharing, and also giving us a 5-star review if you're listening to us on Apple Podcast. This week we have on Nick Patterson. He was a professional MMA fighter. He also got a contract to the UFC, something that we discussed at the start of this episode. However, lately he is the founder of the PeaceMakers, an organization in Australia, which we'll break down in this episode. His story is quite a unique one, and this episode I think you will truly enjoy. I really did myself, and I'm sure you guys will as well. But before we get there, as always, a word from the guys that keeps the lights on in this place. A big shout out to Julian and his team at loanoptions.ai. loanoptions.ai/58. Go to loanoptions.ai/58 for any loans that you need, whether it's business loans, whether it's you need some cash on holiday, you need to consolidate your finances, whatever you need financially, go to loanoptions.ai. Julian will help you there. His team's amazing. You've heard us praise them before, and this episode's no different. He doesn't discriminate, neither does his team, and we truly appreciate the partnership that we have with them. Go to loanoptions.ai/58. Now, without further ado, let's get into this episode. Cheers. Later.
You are listening to episode 86 of the 5-8 Take, Australia's podcast. Be strong, stay calm, be you. Memento mori.
Oh no, just that was what I did. I used to, it was a way out of the mundane, and I was good at it, and I would have kept going. I got the UFC opportunity some years back, and I was contemplating deeply my retirement when I got that opportunity. I just didn't want to do it anymore. And it was mostly because I was very aware of what was happening in this world, and I didn't want to be part of the Roman circus anymore. I wanted to do something more meaningful. And I felt trapped in that cage because it's like all my energy, I guess the high point of all of my existence is being the focal point is this cage, which is all set up by people that are obviously, whoever controls these sports they're in that club.
Yeah.
I mean, all you got to look at the fact that you got a red corner, blue corner, especially in boxing. You've got your 4 corners. You got your 3 knockdown rule. You get a standing 8 count, which is the number of new beginnings. All of these numbers. These sports weren't created by idiots. So when you become aware of that, you realize you're actually just, and then you see people that say, I want to give to the sport, but the sport's not. I don't want to give to a sport because a sport isn't alive. It's just an idea. You give to people, and I just thought there was a lot wrong with it. Didn't gel with my thinking. So I was aware of what was happening with all the vaccine stuff back then. I was saying years ago that they're going to mandate vaccines, and people thought I was mad. Now they've a lot of them remember, and they say, Nick, I don't think you're mad anymore. So that's God taking me out of the world and showing me what it was. And then he put a will on my heart to do something different.
Were you religious back then when you were going through it? Like you found at the end, God put.
I was actually much more religious back then because I'm not really religious now. I read my Bible very, very deeply, and I'm I have very strong faith. But the word religion just comes from the word religiare. It means to rebind. We're bound by our oath and the words that we come out of our mouth. That's why an oath of allegiance and religion, they come from the same word. They come from that religiare. So it really just means to be a part of a legion. Again, a legion, right? And I went, I'm not really that. That's not right. Just because I have faith and I believe in God, and I look at the Bible and I look at the deeper layers there, that doesn't mean I'm religious. So I was much more religious back then than I am now. I've broken free of a lot of that.
Do you look at because this is what I've been doing lately, because I've been looking at Stoicism a lot for quite some time. I've been, doing a lot of articles on it and pushing it forward. I've began to look at the philosophy of Jesus Christ rather than just the religious aspect of everything. Have you looked at these sects of religion from a philosophical standpoint at all, or have you just?
Oh, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit? Like, where are you coming from there? Because that's it's not that specific. That can be interpreted in many ways, what you just said. So can we just elaborate a little bit so I can know exactly what you're trying to for example, express there?
Yeah. So for example, in Stoicism, we have memento mori, right? Which means remember death. When I look at the cross as a kid, I was always wondering why do we just look at this person's death? We should be celebrating his life. Why are we just looking at having this peace and is this a dark thing that people are just holding on to and then just seeing this guy, whatever way you look at him, whether he's God, he's a prophet, whichever way, why would we be looking at his death? So lately, as I understand memento mori a lot more from Stoicism, I look at that from a philosophical standpoint of we are to remember death, and Jesus and God being, inside us is for us to remember our death by remembering his death. So I see a lot of in the cross, I now understand it as the Stoicism standpoint, the philosophical standpoint of memento mori. So He died on the cross. God is within us. The universe is within us. A lot of Christian teachings say that, we are the sons and children of God, and we died essentially our sins on that cross. So essentially by a mirror image, what I'm saying is that we're remembering our own death via seeing that cross. And that's what I mean from a philosophical standpoint.
So, look, to me, I'm not the physical flesh suit. So, I'm just the spirit inside. That's the bit that came from God. My physical flesh didn't. That came from my mum and dad. And that's going to die. The flesh is always going to die. The spirit doesn't have to. But that's going to be based on whether or not I got the grace of God, whether God's going to just give me the favor and think, you know what, you weren't evil in everything you did. You did your best. You fought all the way through and you stood up for the truth. Like it says in the Bible, Jesus says, to this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should be a witness of the truth. Those who are of the truth hear my voice. So if you're of the truth, you hear his voice. Where do you hear that? Inside of you. Okay, so it's the voice of God that convicts your conscience. Just like it says in John chapter 1, it says, it's the light that lighteth every man that comes into the world. Yes. It's the light of It's that light. That light, everybody has it. We all have a conscience. Not everybody follows it. A lot of people will you can't serve God and mammon. Okay, so God's internal. It's the spiritual. Okay, God is a spirit. Those that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The spirit of God dwells inside you. The flesh will die. Okay, so the flesh, if we're looking on the external world for God, okay, you're not going to really find it there. The external world, even Jesus himself says, I am not of this world. I'm not of this world. He says, my people are in the world, but they're not of the world. Okay, the world. Who owns the world? Well, the word "world" itself is two words. It's where, man, and it's old. world. Okay, comes from the word like werewolf, man-wolf, and old, right? So that's what world means. It means the old man. There's Bible verses that tell us to put off the old man of sin, because the old man dies. We've got to be renewed, and the way we become renewed is through the renewing of our spirit and our mind. Okay, we're transformed by the renewing of our spirit and mind. So I look at it all completely as being a spiritual. This is all a spiritual battle. The flesh can war all it likes, but it's the minds of men and the ideas, and there is a God. And when you reach out and look for him, when you search for him, ask, you shall receive, knock and it shall be open, seek and you shall find, you do find him, and you find out, oh, God is really right there. And no one can take that from me. It doesn't matter how intelligent they are and how well they articulate an idea or a concept. If it's in conflict with what I've seen, experienced and heard and felt from God, then I go, I'm not going to accept it. And like it says, no man can come to Jesus. Jesus says it himself. He says, no man can come to me save the Father first draw him. So the Father, which is, if you look at the name of God, Moses asked him, what will I call you? And he says, I am that I am. I am. So I am means consciousness. I am, I exist. And then we see in John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What's Word mean? It's the word logos. It just means it's intelligence. And a word that you write or speak is it's your expression of an it's a concept or an idea. It's intelligence. The intelligence is not the body. It took intelligence to create that, but the spirit inside is who you are. That's the bit that's who you are. And most people don't know who they are. And that's what I want people to recognize. Once they start to realize who they are, and that voice inside of them is the voice of God, and they start to follow that, and then things start to work out for them. They start to become empowered. We'll see those people become converts. They will then do the same thing and let their light shine, and others will see it, and then they will be inspired. And the word inspire means spirit in. So they'll see someone doing what's of God, because it's coming from a place from internally, and it's going to be expressed on the outside. That's what emotion means. It means to move out. If you look at the etymology, it means to move out. Something inside of you gets moved out, and people see it. But if it's from God, it's going to be good. People are going to see it. They're going to go, I want that. I want to be that. I want some of that. But what's happened is this world's inspired people to be fearful, which is a sin. We're not meant to be cowards. We're meant to, says no fear all through the Bible. It even says the cowardly will be cast out. We're not meant to be cowards, but we've got a population of people that have just, I'm too scared to do what I believe is right. We need people to be inspired with good thoughts, with the good spirit, but they're not. They're being inspired with just evil. The TV's evil. I mean, all you could do is look at some of the TV shows, A friend of mine was actually my boys, one of them saw a couple of episodes of that Squid Game, and I didn't know what it was, at a friend's place. It was actually my older boy. And when I found out what it was, I was just shocked, because I hadn't watched it. So I started to watch it. I watched a few episodes of it, and I went, this show is just evil. This is just murder.
I haven't seen it. So what actually is it? I've heard about it, but I see it everywhere, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, well, so my son was 9 at the time, and he's at his friend's place, and they're watching this thing. And when I found out what it was, it just shocked me. I thought, these kids can't watch that. This stuff is evil. Basically, it's these people go into a game. It's like, and I reckon there's a lot of truth to this, because we know what these psychopaths do. And they're on this island somewhere, and they go underground, and there's all of this. Everything looks like an Escher painting. And they have games where you basically got to kill each other, and for money. Yeah, it's murder. It's just depravity, complete depravity. And they pick people from society that have got really big financial problems, where they're going to probably kill themselves anyway. So it's just completely horrible. But that's what the people are seeing. That's like the biggest show at the moment. That tells you something about, because what's in here will precede whatever comes out. So the thought precedes the action, or the principle of a thing is its beginning, right? So the beginning of a thing is the thought in the mind, and then that will be expressed on the outside. So this is what's happened to our people, they've been filled with lies. They've been filled with the darkness and evil. And if you put evil in your mind and you try to be a good guy and try to hold on to good thoughts, they're just going to go to war with each other in your mind. You're going to be unstable.
I'm yet to see that show. I've heard it's supposed it's got
it.
a lot
Don't
of
watch
symbolism in it. Yeah, I've kept I feel like I know what it is, and what interests me is like in my mind, it's like, is this orchestrated or is it not? Because every now and then you have particular Netflix show that just peers through. And I always wonder, is that marketing, or because it becomes a culture phenomenon? Like, I don't really understand it really. How it spreads that way.
Design. It's definitely by design. They don't do anything for no reason. That's an idea that they want in the minds of the people. And they do stuff like this and kill each other, and they do these sorts of things do happen. We know they've been doing it through history, and we know they still do it now. But I don't recommend anyone ever watch it, because I watched a few episodes of it, and then I felt so empty inside, and I just felt yuck. I knew it was bad. It was completely against my conscience. I said, I'm not going to watch any more of this. I said that to my wife. I said, I just can't watch it. This is awful. I can't believe my son saw this at a friend's place, and so this is kids that are watching this stuff, little kids.
Yeah, my sister's young and she was watching it. I was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Just they even had a statue in the middle of Sydney, just not too long ago. What do you watch beyond that? What do you watch? What do you kick back to?
I don't really watch too much. If there's something there are some inspiring movies that are out there that exist. If there's some goodness in it, and it inspires, you can tell if something's good because of how you feel, right? It's the same when you have a conversation with someone. If it's a conversation where you're just arguing or you're fighting, you feel empty, you feel or it brings a bad part of you out, then it's bad. It's not edifying. But when you feel you're uplifted, you're thinking higher. You're thinking you're thinking in a more moral way, in a more confident way to do good. Then it's good. But yeah, I try to stick to biblical stuff because that's all I'm really interested in. Because it's how I think, and those stories, there's so much in them, especially like the book of Daniel. I was watching a movie called Daniel the other day, and I was really, really inspired. And there's a lot of things in Daniel that even like, that saying, the writing's on the wall, that's from the book of Daniel. It doesn't say that exactly, but there was writing on the wall. It was from God. And he was telling them something, right? And that's where the saying comes from, the writing's on the wall, And
the book of Daniel has a lot of dreams in it, right?
Yeah, a lot of visions of the future and what's going to happen. And that's what I think what I like about it so much is when you understand what the symbols mean, it helps you to interpret a lot of maybe your own dreams or dreams that like my little ones have dreams and they tell me what they saw in it. Yeah. What these ideas are, what the water is, what the sun means, just what these things mean. Once you start to understand what they mean, you can kind of interpret a lot of what's going on there, because there is a lot of meaning in dreams. We're more conscious when we're subconscious than when we're conscious and we're awake. We're actually more conscious there.
100%. And I feel like we've moved a little bit away. Like you speak to people and they're always like, I don't remember my dreams. And I feel there's a disconnect there. It might be a situational thing. I do see change in a lot of people throughout this entire ordeal that we've had around the world, where people are looking more into their faith, into their dreams, and looking into nutrition and connectivity, which is an amazing thing. Before the last 20 months, how did you like? A lot of people have seen this coming. I've spoken to a lot of people and they just didn't see the particular way that it would happen. Have you seen any good in the last 20, of course you've seen good, but what are like the good that you've seen in the last 20 months? Everyone focuses on the bad, but for you, what's some of the good that you've seen in the last 20 months?
I've seen people listen to their conscience and listen to God and say, you know what, I'm not going to do this. This is wrong. There's something inside of me that's conflicting with what's happening on the external world, and I'm not going to sacrifice what's inside of me, because that's who I am, and I'm going to keep my integrity and my honor intact and do what I know is right, regardless of what I lose. So I've seen sacrifice of things. I've seen people sacrifice their status, their standing amongst men, their jobs, for their spirit and their soul, and that is beautiful. Very inspiring, and when you see it and you know that they've done that, and I've seen people these are people that many of which I didn't think had it in them to do that, but I've also seen people that I thought did have it in them just crumble as well, because this is the world of the persona, right? So you don't know who I am inside, and I don't know who you are except for what we express. But what's happened is there's been an unveiling. Something's happened that's caused what's inside of people to have to come out. And now we're seeing that many of the people that put on this brave face of being strong and, they're all about freedom or whatever it is, they've just withered. But then some that you didn't know were actually had that inside of them and actually did rise. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the separation of the sheep and the goats, and the sheep are the good ones, because they're the ones that follow the good shepherd. My sheep hear my voice and I know them, right? And the goats are the ones that go and do whatever they feel like doing. Well, just do it. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that God is letting psychopaths in this world conflict the people and put them into a position that's extreme, and giving us the opportunity to make the right choices. And many people aren't, but there's many that are, and that's a beautiful thing.
A couple of people made the wrong choices on this Dan Andrews bill that just passed today, mate. Did you I don't know if that was just a play where, get the people excited and then pass it last minute. I am glad that there is a third body that's going to oversee Andrews and his chief health officer if they do decide to send people away. I do appreciate that there's a body there, but even I think there's 6 amendments. Even that, just a number. Like I just don't. I feel that there is just a lot of weak people in Parliament and people that just seem like that they're putting a face a lot of the time. What are your thoughts on that bill passed today?
Well, there's only the first commandment was, thou shalt have no other gods before me. But these people that got their brown paper bags full of cash, they completely disregarded the people. So the 2 greatest commandments, love God and love thy neighbour, right? They disregarded their neighbour, and they disregarded the voice of God, which was within them, the truth. For big, I don't know how big the paper bags were and how much money was in them, but we know that's what they do. That's what they always do. And these are people that don't have any depth inside their soul. They've got nothing. They're empty shells. And that would be why they would be in those positions. It's like it says in the Bible. It says, God says it 3 times. He says he sets up the basest of men to rule. 3 times. In the book of Daniel, actually. The basest of men, right? The most animal type of men and women to be in those kinds of positions, because you and I wouldn't do that to people. But God uses these people to bring out the best in the good ones and to destroy the wicked ones. And then they destroy themselves in the end as well. That's always been the pattern. Okay, God will allow, when the people turn away from God, what happens, what the scriptures tell us, and it's interesting because it says this in the first clause of our Constitution, Commonwealth Constitution, it says relying upon the blessings of Almighty God. We know which God they're talking about. It's no other God. It's the God that's of the Bible, because that's the one the Queen's meant to swear an oath under, and that's the God of these countries that we're in. So, of the Western countries. That's why there's a Bible in the court and the Parliament building, which they're trying to get rid of because they want to be God. But when you keep the commandments of God, which is and you follow your conscience and you do what you know is right, there's blessings that come from that. Now, we haven't been doing that. And the reason we haven't been doing that is because we've been tempted to not do that. They've given us music that's depraved. They've given us movies that's depraved. They've given us social media that's depraved, Tinder, everything, they've given us, they've kept the brothels open in Melbourne and while they've been in lockdowns, they've kept the bottle shops open. They've been selling four times the alcohol during these lockdowns than the normal. I mean, this is the sort of stuff, the donut shops are open, but anywhere that's like positive, shut. So it's basically an attack on the human spirit. So if they can starve the goodness of your spirit and starve it out, okay, and feed all the animalistic stuff, they're going to create a beast. That's what the beast of Revelation is. It's a clear representation of the state of mind of the people.
Do you believe Scott Morrison's a Christian?
No, and not at all. Nothing in him is Christian. He's not a believer. He's a believer in evil. Yeah. I've met some people that claim to be victims of him. I believe them too, but I can't prove it.
We seem to be in very, very weird times, and I don't understand how we've come so far in faith, or maybe religion itself is the explanation. It's not really. A lot of them don't see it as faith. Maybe they just do see it as just belief, which is a thought to break down itself. Why don't you feel these people see these revelations? Why don't they see the mark of the beast coming? Why don't they see what is written in a book if they've been practicing it for so long?
Well, because they're not real. They're just actors. No different than the actors in the media. They pretend to be legitimate journalists, but then they just lie. Just like these police, like the public order response team that go around and violently assault people, and then they write false statements against people. Just like the politicians that pretend to be, all for us, but then they're completely against us. Just like those people in those church organisations that, say that God's the greatest out of one breath, and then the next breath they say, yeah, but we've got to be in conflict with God because the government's told us we have to, right? So you can't serve God and mammon. But see, all these church denominations, this is the thing, right? They become incorporated. Now, they shouldn't become incorporated. That in of itself is necromancy. It means to be a corporation, dead body, dead thing, corpse, oration speaking, right? So they're engaged in necromancy. The Bible is very clear on that. We should not be involved in necromancy. Then, because they do that and set up an ABN so that they can be engaged in commerce. They want to play the game of commerce. Now, then they make an application, which means to beg to the government to get a tax-free exemption so that they can be a business that earns lots of money and doesn't have to pay any tax. And then the government then is now in contract with the church. So you've just given that which is holy to the dogs, which is a Bible verse again. And then these churches, for the money, have given away their decision-making. That's what it is to have money changers in your temple. Like when Jesus flipped over the money table, the money changers tables, and he said, look, make not my Father's house a place of merchandise. What they've done to the churches. And that's what people do, because this is really, you're the temple. Your mind, okay, your thinking, your decision-making, that's the one gift that you've got from God that's truly yours. He won't take it away from you, your ability to make your own choices. And if you're giving those choices over to the enemy, then you've made the temple of God, a place of merchandise for money. So I believe that these churches are all corrupted, all the big ones. There's some small ones and some good ones that are out there, like, there's a church pastor nearby to me. He's a good man. His name's Paul Furlong, but he was put in jail. First time in the history of this country, he was put in jail for for opening his church. They called it incitement. During lockdowns, they said it was incitement for him to open up his church. And they put him in jail. He was in jail the same time I was in jail too, at the same jail as well. I'm speaking tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. my time, so Melbourne time, to a pastor called Arthur Pulowski he's from Calgary in Canada, and he was put in jail for months for opening his church as well. So this is, if you are a legitimate church that does what God would have you do, you're going to probably go to jail. But that just shows these people have courage because they're willing to go to jail for the truth, be a living modern witness of the truth. But you've got all these other ones that are just bowing down to the dictates of tyrants, getting their flock to follow what is just a lie. And it's so evil. I think they're going to be just absolutely damned for what they've done by leading people and telling them to go and get that jab. Go get the jab so you can come to our church meeting. It's like that blood's on your hands. But that's what's happening.
Where do we sit with common law? Why isn't the basis of our entire law structures not being upheld? Or it seems to me that it's not being upheld. I mean, it just in the front of our passport, which is our highest legal document, I guess we can carry as individuals, it says that you can cross borders without being interrupted, and you should be allowed to do so. So where are we sitting with this? Where even pastors are going to jail for incitement when they're just doing their God-given right?
Well, I think they've just shown us what they are. They're evil people. We've got evil people. So I always talk about politics with people. I've been involved for a little while, and I say to, someone might say, "Oh, I believe in communism," and I believe in socialism. Oh, I believe in this. I believe in capitalism. I say, I don't really believe in any ism. I believe in, if there's good people, any ism will be okay. If the people that are running the show are good, it doesn't matter if they're righteous people, and any ism will be bad if the people are bad, because and common law has never been taken away. It's just been codified in the statutes. So we've got the statute law, okay, that exists, and it just has the common law in it. It's the common laws. We're completely common law. Even the Victoria Police Act says very clearly that if all the police that have made an oath or affirmation, Section 50, so this is in Section 51, have the duties and powers of a constable of common law. It's literally what it says. But they don't apply that at all, because they don't operate as though they're constables at common law, because a constable, according to the Australian Legal Dictionary, cannot be directed by the government as to who he or she should prosecute. But are the police being directed by the government? Yeah. They got the government directives and they're enforcing them. That's not their job. It's completely against the law for them. That's called acting under dictation, which is when an unauthorised authority dictates to somebody that has authority over their office. So police have independent authority over their office, and they cannot be directed by the government. So when the government starts directing it to them, then they're overstepping their authority. They don't have authority over the police. Their job is to enforce the law and the law only. If they start doing what the government tell them to do, well, then who's going to arrest the government if they're committing an offence? It's not going to be the police, and it's called acting under dictation. And what we've seen in Victoria has been completely criminal. The police are criminals. They've been acting under dictation in a way that's criminal, and the offences are criminal.
I interviewed not too long ago Dr. Robert Malone, who's the mRNA vaccine technology inventor. He stated that there was a hole in the biowarfare treaty where incapacitating agents are allowed, which made me put a whole question, because I kept hearing about Nuremberg 2.0, Nuremberg 2.0, and hearing that they know, he says that the people in my world know that fact. So hearing him say that, and then people signing away, giving consent essentially just before they take this vaccine, shows showed me that there's Nuremberg is null and void during this situation. However, he did touch on Nuremberg a little bit at the start, but that was what he finished with, which he said, this is something that I haven't said and I just want to get it off. And he finished with that. When you hear Nuremberg, what do you think? What comes to you just automatically? Do you think there is a chance of this occurring, or do you think that there's other ways around?
Mate, you're not the piece of paper. They can say you've signed this form. They could say any of that. It doesn't change me, unless they've been giving me full disclosure and said, hey, this vaccine is going to do this, 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 and this, and we know this, 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 and this. It doesn't matter what you've signed. I'm not the piece of paper. So the idea of a form is to reform you into something else. So they make you persons and whatever else, and corporate entities. They give you those non-gear names. Like when you go to the court and your name's Mr. and then all capitals. Like, who's that? Why do you call me this? This is not what I've ever been called. So why are you calling me by this title? So the idea that they can, there's paperwork there that says this and there's paperwork that says that. I don't care what the paperwork says anymore, because they don't care about the paperwork. They just do whatever they want. There's a human rights charter in Victoria, but it doesn't matter, does it? They just go, we're going to disregard that. There's a Privacy Act. But then all of a sudden, and you'll hear the government say, we can't actually check your privacy, like your vaccination status because it's against the Privacy Act. But then, but the government said that the employees will say the government's told us we have to. So it doesn't even matter what the law is, right? It really, and the paper's not worth what it's written on if the people that are in positions of power are corrupt and they disregard it anyway.
True.
We just need to be willing to go, it's against conscience. It's unconscionable. I'm not going to do something unconscionable. Yeah, I'm not going to have their blood on my hands. I'm not going to do it. No, I'm actually going to stand up for my brother or my sister, my fellow man, and defend them from you because I think you're trying to hurt them. I believe that you are, and I believe you're a corrupted individual. And I believe, and then people start doing that. More people go, yeah, that's the right way, because people are going to be getting more. I'm thinking, how many people have been hurt from this? I've got a mate who's a physio. He's got 24 patients that have got permanent paralysis in their arms from the vaccine. 24 patients. That's heaps. And he's got another one that's got a permanent brain problem. This is what they're doing to people. These poor people are being the victims of just awful, awful violence against them. And, it doesn't matter to me if there's legislation that says X or Y. It makes no difference to me. It's wrong. And my conscience and the Spirit of God inside me, that's all I need. I don't need any of the other stuff. I do know quite a bit of legislation. I know some of the case law. But what my experience has been, they just disregard it anyway. They don't care.
I completely agree with you. There's been a lot of people that have had a lot of damage, and they're suppressing that information completely, and it's disgusting. It's ridiculous. And you mentioned your arrest earlier, and do you want to break down just what happened?
Yeah. Basically, I went to a rally, and we were surrounded by a large group of police, which ended up being well over 100 in the end. And there was about probably maybe 10 of us. And I had an interaction with them, and I was able to, I knew the law a lot better than these police, or this particular police officer did. And he was really arrogant, and he basically grabbed me and said, look, you're going to come with me. And I said, no, I don't talk to police. And he said, well, you will talk to me. I said, yeah, why is that? And he said, you're not wearing a mask. I said, well, I've got an exemption. He said, will you show it to me? He said, don't have to, because you don't have to in Victoria. And then I went to keep walking, and then he grabbed me. So it was assault, right? It started from the beginning. It started bad. And I pushed his hands away, and he said, well, I believe you're outside of your 5Ks, because it was a 5K boundary thing at that time. And I said, oh, yeah, based on what? And he goes, well, you need to prove your address. I said, no, I don't. And then I started quoting George versus Rocket from 1990, High Court case. I said, when a statute prescribes there must be reasonable grounds for a state of mind, including suspicion and belief, you said belief. it requires the existence of facts, which is sufficient to induce that state of mind in a reasonable person. So where are the facts? And they go, well, we want you to, I want you to talk to me. And we're going, I'll hold you here until I said, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to have to talk to you. DPP versus Hamilton, which is a Supreme Court case that they're meant to all learn in the academy as well. I said, I'm under no obligation to speak to you unless I'm already under arrest. And in order for you to arrest me, you have to have reasonable grounds for that arrest. And that has to come from some sort of factual evidence. Without the facts, you don't have any belief or suspicion. And I'm not going to give you any facts. And then and then so we had this interaction. In the end, he ended up, the inspector tag teamed and he said, all right, guys, we're going to let you go, but, we're going to give you 5-10 minutes or we're going to arrest you, 5 or 10 minutes to leave the area. And so they let us go and we did leave the area. And then we got assaulted as we were walking away by the public order response team. So they're the Gestapo. So they're special police that don't follow any law. They just do whatever they want and they assault people. And what they do is when they assault you, they'll charge you with assault. That's their number one thing that they do. So they blocked the footpath. We walked onto the road to walk around them. And then they started yelling and screaming at us and pushing us. And the mainstream media were all there, all the camera people. So we knew that it was a setup. They were trying to get us to fight back so they could create something for their because they don't do real news, the mainstream media. They don't. We know they don't. They just lie. They have to create a false narrative. And I got the guys to calm down and not get violent. And then they did the same thing again. They became violent with us. And then the third time, there was probably only, I think, 6 of us at this time. There was about 20 police ran on the opposite side of the road on the footpath. We were on the footpath on one side, they were on the other. They ran up ahead of us, ran across the road, and they started throwing punches at my mate. I could show you the footage too if you wanted to have a look at it, and then we ran in and started defending ourselves and defending him, which we have every right to do in the Crimes Act. We have the right to defend yourself or somebody else, it says, if they're being assaulted or if they're being deprived of their liberty. Yeah. So we went in to defend him, and then I got my shoulder ripped out of the socket. I got taken over to the
it actually
hospital.
Dislocated. It came out.
Yeah, they ripped it right out. Yeah, there was about 20 of them, and there was, I think, 4 of us that sort of fought back.
Yeah.
They got capsicum spray out and just sprayed everybody, and just absolutely evil, just pure evil what they did. And then they put me in jail for 29 days based on lies.
So is
lies.
Is that for assault? They reject. So I'm guessing you got there. They rejected which blows my mind that the police themselves are the ones that are in charge of bail when you're there, not any judge or anything. So I'm guessing when you got there that night, they rejected your bail then, and then you would have seen someone. Or?
No, I went before a magistrate, and the magistrate literally said, I believe you're going to breach the show directions again, so I'm going to leave you in jail. Yeah, that's what it's madness. It's so corrupt, mate. It is so corrupt. So they just put me. So I've got 4 children. I've got a wife and 4 children, and they just that's what they did to me. And they left me there for 29 days. And then after 29 days, I was charged with 24 charges on that occasion. I don't know. They just must make up as many things as they can think to say. That's what they would charge you with. So 23 of them were assault charges, and 1 was a breach of a direction. But then they gave me bail conditions where I wasn't able to speak about the law, the government, the directions, the COVID, the state or federal government, the
just a gag
state
order,
or federal law. I couldn't. Basically, it was a complete gag order. Even though I didn't have any even incitement charges. There were no incitement charges there. It was literally assault charges. So it was so obvious what they were doing was to just shut this guy up. And then they put a $50,000 surety on me.
$50,000 surety on you.
Yeah. So if I was a big drug dealer, I wouldn't have got that. But because I was a political prisoner, $50,000 surety. Yeah. These people are evil. And you know what? There is a God, and He is not slack concerning his promises. And he promises that the evil will get theirs and the righteous will get theirs. And I am waiting for it, and it's going to happen.
I'm guessing you got those bail conditions now that you can speak on it. So what happened following that?
Yeah, well, I just had a case conference, and then they reset the bail and they removed the majority of it.
Which is, it sounds like at least a little bit of justice is there. But that initial judge, it's nuts. Yeah, go on.
Well, the initial two that I had, it's good that there are obviously some people in there that aren't horrible, because they go, that's ridiculous. Why have you got these bail conditions? They make no sense. It's not like I've committed any offence with my words, but I've upset them with my words because I've spoken the truth and I've spoken against the government. But I have a right to speak against the government. But maybe I don't anymore. Maybe that those rights that exist on paper, that are well-established rights, like the right to criticise government, it's only there in a tokenary way. It's not real. This is the thing. Anyway,
does the Magna Carta have anything to do with that? The Magna Carta it's interesting to me because the king gave the barons allowed them to essentially speak and do what they needed to do. But my understanding is that the evolution of the barons has sort of become the parliamentaries, and the citizens aren't part of that class. So our freedom of speech...
everything's been changed.
Yeah.
Everything's been changed. Like, we don't even get treated as people now. Yeah. We're looked at as cattle. I mean, the whole birth certificate fraud, birth certificate bond system that we're in, as long as we don't know who we are and realise, and the way to find your way home is in that Bible. Yeah. But the churches don't teach it. This is the thing, they don't teach it. It's so bad. They literally think. I mean, I've been at churches, lots of different churches, and they've all taught pretty much except for one. I've been to some probably that haven't as well, but the main ones that I've been to, they've all preached that you've got to pay tax to the government, and then they quote that Bible verse which says, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's." And it's like, but I've read that Bible. I've read the Bible. It doesn't say that. It says he says basically it's a trick question. They said, "Who should we pay tribute to Caesar or not?" And it's a trick question so they can kill Jesus, because if he says no, they're going because it says that they wanted to send it to the governor to kill him. Yeah. So if he says no, they go, all right, no worries, and they go get the Roman governor. You got to kill this man. He's teaching people not to pay tax. If he says yes, pay the Romans their tax, then he'll go to the synagogue and to the assembly of the Jews and say, hey, this man teaches us, that we're to pay tax to Rome, right? So he says, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God's. And that's the whole thing. Do I belong to God or do I belong to Caesar? Mm-hmm. Because if I belong to Caesar, I want some evidence of that. And if I've got any obligation to Caesar, I'll pay it. But I don't believe I belong to Caesar at all. But they've basically brought us up in a way where we believe that we do belong to Caesar. We believe that we have to apply, which just means to beg for anything that we get from the government. We have to check, am I allowed to do this? I better check first. Allowed just to, can I grow a garden in this area? Am I allowed to grow a garden? Am I allowed to build a house on my land? Am I allowed to? This is the madness of it. We have the right to do that. If you ask if you've got the right, then you just by the virtue of asking these people means you don't have it, because as soon as you ask to exercise the right, you don't have it, because they're going to say yay or nay, and it becomes either a privilege that you have or you don't have.
I love that analogy, by the way. That was fantastic, and the people that caught that was amazing. The yellow vests, I see them quite around Australia.
The peacemakers.
Yes.
Yep.
Which is it's good that you guys have sort of adopted the yellow vest, which is easy to find, and people can come for information and whatever. Maybe you can elaborate each person that is wearing a PeaceMakers yellow vest, what that means.
Yeah, yep, it goes back to it's biblical. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be the children of God. They're there to defend your God-given right. That's it. And I was with a friend of mine, and we worked it out one night. So we thought I was already trying to teach people that they have a right to defend themselves, and I was finding those common law. Basically the principles in the statute law to defend, to basically keep the commandments. Because I see a lot of people being assaulted by the police at protests that were during lockdowns, and I thought people have a right to be there, and that the right of the way our society is meant to operate, the right of the state is trumped by the right of the individual to liberty. So the right of the state to prosecute the individual is not as great as the right of the individual to have liberty. So I knew that. So I thought, well, these police are just literally just grabbing people arbitrarily and randomly, just grabbing them and dragging them away. That's against the Human Rights Charter, which hasn't been, there's no reason for them to do that either. There's no declaration override to override those sections in the Human Rights Charter. Then they were kettling people. I said that's a human rights violation. That's unlawful deprivation of liberty, because it says in the Human Rights Charter that if a person is detained or arrested, they must be informed at the time of their detention or arrest for the reason of the arrest or detention. And when they kettle people, they just hold them there and they don't tell them why they're being arrested or detained. And when people ask them, the police won't tell them. So I knew that was another human rights violation. Okay, they have an obligation to tell you why, and if they're not going to tell you why, then you have every right to break free and get out of there. So anyway, I was teaching people this, but then I thought, why don't we make it something a bit more visual? And then we got the idea of doing the vests, and we've got orange vests and yellow vests, and the yellow vests are for the people on the front line that will use force if needs be, and the vests that are orange are more for the people that maybe the women that don't have the ability to physically be a presence, but they do a lot of the other jobs like communicating and liaising with people, and oftentimes they are better at that as well. And they might be first aiders as well. So, and the reason we have the symbol is a lion, because to be bold as a lion is another biblical verse. So you stand up for the truth. You don't hide away out of fear. Yeah. We want to be seen, and we want people to see what we're doing, and they want people to want to be a part of it as well. If we can get lots and lots of people with really strong values, we can win. 100% we can win. But without strong values and without people that have integrity and honour and that are willing to stand up for what's right, and it's not just people that are willing to, people have to actually know what's right as well. If we can get a large number of people doing that, it's the end for them, because that will just keep growing and growing. So and the whole idea of the peacemakers, I set up these core values, and the idea was it's the word sin and repentance in the Hebrew. So in Hebrew, the word is sin is hatat, just means to miss the mark, to be off the course, on the wrong course. Yeah. And the word for repentance it's the word shuv, which means to turn back the right way. I thought, well, if we can get people following these core principles and living, recognizing the merits of others, being diligent and studying, putting the effort into study and learn what the facts of something is so they can be confident, having courage. If we can get people doing that, they're starting to go back, walk the right way with God and with their conscience. And that's where the power is. So that's what the Australian Peacemakers is. And we're in I think all the states, but we have big core groups in New South Wales, Victoria and WA. They're our biggest groups.
My hometown, WA. Love it. When I first moved to Australia, that's where I moved to. Love.
Oh yeah, where did you move from?
Brazil. So I was originally from a little farm. Then I went to Rio Favelas for a little bit, and then I came over here. And yeah, just I guess moved across to Sydney. But I love the embodiment of everything, and the spirit that derives in you really comes through the peacemakers. And speaking to you now, your knowledge of biblical text, what you've been through, your history really embodies the peacemakers. And what you guys are doing, I truly commend it, mate. I really do. And the fight and everything that you've done down in Melbourne, I tip my hat off to you. Continue what you're doing. I know it's late, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I'm sure we'll do this again and do it in real life as well, hopefully. But yeah, do keep doing what you're doing, and please tell them where to find you, and tell them where the peacemakers, if they are interested in joining and embodying all the philosophies that you have and the belief system and honesty, integrity, tell them where to go.
Yeah, so you can find us at, I've got a website called John 8, the number 8. So John, that's where you get the Bible verse, the truth will set you free, John chapter 8. So john8.net. And then there's AustralianPeacemakers.com as well. And you can find us there. But you can find the Australian Peacemakers on the John 8 site as well, because the other site just piggybacks on the John 8 site. So, yeah, john8.net, AustralianPeacemakers.com.
Excellent.
And we're looking for people with strong morals, people that want to do good, that are fearless, and they're happy to stand up for the truth, and people that can see beyond this world and can see that there's more going on in the spiritual.
Amazing. Love it. Nick, thank you so much for your time, mate. I will speak to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. God bless.
Brother.